All right, how's it going out there, folks? Welcome back here to a Sunday, 12:05 p.m. California time here. August 3rd, 2025 is the date. Latest activity here on the globe shows a 3.5 earthquake hiding out here somewhere in the cluster of earthquakes that we got out here. Looks like down across the New Zealand area. A little bit of movement down there in the 4 range as well. Looks like that's around the North Island region. Watch that closely. New Zealand's sitting right there on the plate boundary, with all the movement all over the place here recently, all across the Pacific plate and areas to the west and north. I do expect this to adjust. It kind of has to eventually, right? But there is a number of 4s there underneath North Island. Actually, those look pretty shallow. So continue to watch out. There is a deeper 3.5 right now, about 150 kilometers deep into this area. That could be associated, it looks like, maybe with the Hikurangi subduction zone that sits there off the east coast of the North Island. So watch that. There's our large movement from last night, 6.4 earthquake. Shortly thereafter, after that 6.4, we had a bigger quake up north here into the Kamchatka area again. This earthquake originally coming in as a 7.0. Let me show you guys this quake. Got to go down a little bit. About 10:30 last night here, just after I ended the update, this 6.8 came in again as a 7-pointer. It did get downgraded there to a 6.8, so that makes it the second largest aftershock there in the sequence of events across the Kamchatka, Russia area. Of course, the largest is going to be that mega quake, 8.8 here on the 29th. There's our 6.8 here from last night. I really thought that was going to hold as a 7-pointer, but he dropped it down. Still possible we could see some 7.0 earthquake activity in this region. The reason why I say that is because it's fairly common to see at least one 7-pointer from a magnitude 8.8. So kind of waiting on that. 10 aftershocks of 6.0 to 6.9 on average for an 8.8 earthquake. Well, we got, what do we got here? We got, looks like 8 6-pointers so far. And I know, right, if you think about it, one little 5.9 to 6.0, there's actually quite a bit of energy release in between just that one little number, even a 0.1. So we will watch for that 7-pointer here. I'm sure it will come up. Either way, aftershock activity continuing here in this area since that 6.8 last night. Look at all those earthquakes, 4s and 5s, a couple upper 5s there. The earthquake activity is continuing, no doubt, there across the Russia area. Of course, we had that volcano pop there last night or yesterday after just over 500 years, right? 1550 was the last eruption here from this volcano around the Kamchatka, Russia area. This stirred up yesterday, and of course that's a result of the 8.8 earthquake, that subduction zone further diving down underneath this area. It's a major oceanic subduction zone here. This is the Pacific plate sliding underneath this area, and of course if you think about it, that 8.8 major energy release that I believe put further pressurization down below, though, where the volcanoes get all their energy and whatnot from. So we could still see some activity stirring up there as far as further volcano activity. We'll definitely watch that. No new movement there across the Japan area for now. Got some older activity from yesterday. Been a little quiet here, but I do think things are building up in that region. A little bit of movement north here into, looks like it's north of the northern end of the Cascadia on the North American and the Pacific plate boundary here, just off the coast of Canada. Double check the bells are off. We'll run over here real quick to see what they're reporting on this earthquake. We pull up the plate boundaries. This is going to be this quake in the purple circle, known earthquake. Interesting. They have it set as a 3.9 though, off the BC coast. USGS not picking up on that earthquake. Alaska area, really nothing major going on. Just a handful of earthquakes there above 2.5 and the smaller quake range, the microquake range. Into the Pacific Northwest, a little bit quieter here today. Yesterday and the day before, things were quite elevated out here. Seen a whole bunch of tremor counts being recorded underneath this area with the Cascadia subduction zone. Let me show you guys the tremor map from yesterday. 414 epicenters of tremor underneath this area of Washington and even some down into Oregon. That's not volcanic, but this is slow slip events being recorded by the two plates as they slowly slide past each other. In this case, the Juan de Fuca plate further subducting underneath the North American plate here. These tremor counts are a sign that things are putting the squeeze out here, further straining the Cascadia subduction zone there at the locked area, which sits offshore there. We'll check this out a little bit later on this evening, see what the counts look like, but possibly could be looking at maybe a little bit less, just looking at this earthquake activity. Maybe not down here in Northern California. Man, this is the second earthquake here I've seen right on the Cascadia subduction zone, the southern end. I'm starting to think maybe this is getting ready. 3.5 striking here this morning directly on the locked area. This is an interface area where the Juan de Fuca plate, or in this case, there's a microplate called the Gorda plate here, is subducting there underneath the North American plate, right there at the boundary. That's not a good sign, but I know last week here, let me show you guys this earthquake that struck out here. Interestingly, it's right around that same area. This 4.5 earthquake came in 6 minutes prior to the 8.8 in Russia last week. Remember the big old earthquake, right? Well, this earthquake, 4.5, 6 minutes prior to the 8.8. Leads me to believe that maybe something was about ready to pop here. Now we got another event with a 3.5 right on the southern end of the Cascadia. If we look back at the last 30 days here, we've noticed a migration working its way up north this region. They do have regular intervals of partial ruptures of Cascadia subduction zone earthquakes. Let me show you guys here real quick. Let me see if I can find the Cascadia timeline here. I normally see if I can find that. There it is. I do see it right here on my bookmarks. Okay, so this is a pretty important map right here. This is, I'm sure you guys have been hearing about this as well through social media and whatnot. And if you're watching my videos, I do talk a lot about the Cascadia because we're living in a time here where, it's not like we had the Cascadia earthquake 20 years ago where we have to wait another 200, 300 years. No, that was way in the past, our last event. Average earthquakes there along the Cascadia run about 246 years. So here we are, 325 years, well into this average time period here, where we could be talking about the next big mega quake out here across the Pacific Northwest and Northern California. Now, these major events here can go up to about a 9.1, 9.2 or so. This one looks like the largest, 9.1. That ruptured, in its entirety, 621 miles there, the length of the Cascadia subduction zone. The magnitude is going to be dependent on the amount of rupture along that fault system. That's why you see in 8.1 there with only 137 miles rupture. And that is normally down here across the southern end of the Cascadia subduction zone. So even at 8.1 out here would be crazy with the local tsunami and the possibly distant, but just got to look at this here. Main event. There's a main event, 8.8. Partial ruptures occur quite common here in between main events. Not all the time, but it does look like recently, up until about 6,000 years ago or so, according to this graph here by Oregon Live. I think we're at a time period here where we're going to see something, folks. The longest time period here, let's see, in between events, 373, is way back longer. But it's possible here that they weren't able to pinpoint if there were any smaller partial ruptures in between these big main events here. But I think we're going to see a line out here. Now, whether it's going to be another complete rupture or a partial rupture, I think we're getting awfully close here, because we're past that time period between many events that we had seen in the past. And we, like I say, it would fill in. It's very possible we may just see a partial rupture out here, but even then, that's not an okay thing, because that would be a big earthquake, say for an 8.1 or 8.2 out here across the southern end. It's just these little quakes here are getting rather interesting right on the Cascadia megathrust zone. Bunch of it down south here, just kind of migrating northward in today's event. That's 5 o'clock this morning, 9 miles deep there. A lot of tremor activity being recorded underneath this area recently. I wouldn't doubt it. Wouldn't surprise me to be hearing about this soon, folks, because remember, we're living in the future right now. It's not like this happened 100 years ago or 200 years ago. This happened 325 years ago. So all that strain, everything that's been going on there with the Pacific Plate here recently, a bunch of adjustment, major offshore activity. I'm talking about the Blanco fracture zone here, putting further strain across the southern end. This is just in the last 30 days, but this has been quite active here in the last several months, with a lot of movement further straining this area right here. There was one up in the Oregon area in the last 30 days as well. Pretty shallow crustal quake on the fold and thrust belt. On a cutout view here, this area of the North American plate is folding. That's why you're getting these. That's why I call it the fold and thrust belt, because as the Juan de Fuca plate here subducts underneath the North American plate, this plate area becomes locked and stuck, and it bends. It kind of folds in on itself as the strain is accumulating. So eventually, when the big earthquake strikes out here, this land will drop. There is obviously elevated activity in terms of inflation going on out here across this area. This is inflation in terms of not volcano, but uplift due to the folding of the plate. This is around Brookings, Oregon here. This is southern Oregon. Look at this going up and up and up. Just think about that, since 300 or since 1700, the last big earthquake. How much vertical displacement we've accumulated there because of this subduction zone. And that's, again, around the Brookings area, down here across northern Cal. This is Trinidad. Interesting, this is going down here. It is towards the extreme southern end. Excuse me. Let me see. That one's fairly level. There's certain areas that are just... That one's going up as well. I guess it all depends on which one you're looking at here, but that is definitely some vertical displacement there. Anyway, we just got to be prepared. That's the key word here, prepared. Don't become complacent. You know, it's I hear many people stating that, well, if it happens, it happens. I've had a good life. That's not a good attitude to have. Definitely got to make sure you're prepared. Any strong shaking felt there along the coastline of Northern California, Oregon, Washington, the first thought should come into mind is to get away from the coastal water if you're living nearby. But this timeline here is really important here, folks. This tells us right here, and it just matches that we could see a partial rupture fill in here, and then it does look like this could be comparable right here. This happened in 10,078 or 1078, excuse me. And then it looks like some hundreds of years later there was a partial rupture, and then a short time after that the full rupture. But it's like that on many of these different ones. They know here when we've had last big events because of these sediments and whatnot that accumulate there on the oceanic floor. They've also done tsunami samples well inland to see when tsunami deposits were deposited well inland upon different layers and whatnot. So they know what they're talking about when it comes to the timeline of the Cascadia here. Like I say, I think we could very well see that fill in soon. So just watch that. That's a little interesting quake right there. Let me double check and see. 3.5. It's underneath automatic status, but so it hasn't been officially reviewed. But it's definitely in an interesting area. Bay Area pretty quiet here for now. San Andreas Fault, not a whole lot going on. Southern California looks super duper quiet again. Nothing. Well, there's a couple smaller quakes out here above 2.5. Lake Henshaw area on the Elsinore Fault here. Aside from that, it's moving into Nevada and also further south here. But a little quiet out there today. A couple smaller quakes there off the southern branch of the San Andreas Fault, but nothing big going on. Yellowstone National Park, nothing showing up there, but they did fix this web page here called isthisthingon.org, although the amplitude readings are still squashed, right? That 6.8 barely, let's see here, 1900. Is this this looks like it's offline here, right? 1930. Is it UTC time right now? Let's see. I guess that would be right. So this here is going to be that 6.8 from last night. That's barely noticeable. On the other seismograph stations there, that before they did something with this, the amplitude level, you could see that 6.8 show up across all of the graphs here. Now everything's tuned down. So even some of the smaller quakes there that we maybe normally see across Yellowstone are just squashed there and not viewable. I mean, if so, that's what he uses. He uses the University of Utah stations here, but it might be a good idea to go over to the official USGS page on the volcano hazards map and look at Yellowstone from there, because you can access a bunch of stuff over here, and you kind of have to click on every single graph here, but it should be more prominent looking than the other ones. See, there's 6.8 there again, but it does show more earthquakes, stuff that we didn't see on the other graphs because the amplitude level here is cranked up a little bit, so you can see events a little bit easier. We go check out northwestern area here. This one looks a little, that one's squashed though. I couldn't even see the 6.8 in that. There's the 6.8 showing up quite nicely there late last night. See, this is what it's supposed to look like. You can see large, distant earthquakes and also local seismic activity. See these earthquakes? Those are local events. So it's interesting here that we can't see them on the other ones because they're so toned down, and it is a weekend, so those smaller ones are not going to get reported, but there is still a little bit of earthquake activity up there at Yellowstone. Anyway, hopefully, I just don't like it when they change things out here, because it was much better here about a month ago before the University of Utah changed up their settings here. This is what it used to look like. This is a big earthquake back there in May 3rd. That showed up quite nicely across many of the seismograph stations. Don't recall where that's at, though. I think that may have been, I think that was some event down there in Texas or something, like a 5-pointer, if I remember right. But anyway, you get what I'm saying. The amplitude levels here look normal. You can see all the smaller quakes when they're coming in. Now, that is not the case. Everything's so squashed and turned down here. It reminds me of a AM radio station, right? How the audio is just not all that great compared to FM radio, so far as mid-range treble and bass goes. Okay, we'll get off that. Enough complaining, right? But it bugs me when they change things up. Kansas earthquakes there from yesterday. I don't see anything else going on there today. New Madrid seismic zone. A couple of small earthquakes around that area this morning, a 1.7, and also one over here around Tennessee late last night. No new earthquake activity to report there across New York. That is an interesting quake, but remember, this area can see larger events, and it's been hundreds of years since a bigger quake have struck directly around this area. I know we had that 4.8 a little bit further west here into the New Jersey area last year, but this one's a little bit closer there to the New York area. Let's see what else we have out here across the planet. Some deep earthquake activity there underneath Peru. Look at that. Super deep. It's going to be this quake right here. 300 miles deep for a 5-pointer. That's into the Peru-Chile Trench here. But well underneath this area. There's another earthquake back over here, way south of Australia this morning. There's been so much movement here, east, west, and south of New Zealand recently. Some down here across, just off the Alpine Fault as well, 6.2. But this area north here, on the western side of South Island, is very well primed, and they have not had any large rupture activity on that since 1717, I believe. Can result into I believe an upper 7 along that area. Hikurangi subduction zone, major subduction zone here. You can see the oceanic crust and this little building up on the oceanic floor there. That hasn't had any major rupture activity either in a long time, and that's capable of a mega quake. So New Zealand definitely needs to be on guard here with this ongoing movement. There's been so much shuffling around of the plates, and these locked areas can only stay locked for so long. See if there's anything else major going on here. Mediterranean pretty quiet today. Just let's see, where's our more noticeable quakes at? I guess it's kind of broad scale again today. A little bit here, a little bit there. A lot down south though. Well, we'll kind of keep an eye on things, see how the weekend goes. Let's go ahead and check out space weather activity here real quick, see if we got anything major going on there. Looks like a little C flare activity and an M flare overnight. Look at that. Little impulsive M flare event there on the graph. Let's see. I'm betting I already know where that came from. Kevin and his comedy here. Stop the press. An M2.9 solar flare was observed around newly assigned sunspot 4168. Okay, so that's not the one I was expecting. 4168. So wow, that's gonna be over here. There is definitely some deep colors over there. Oh, look at that. That's grown quite nicely there. A whole bunch of different individual colors in close proximity. That is what you want to see there for some flaring. I was expecting it from this area, but this region's got a separation there in the core now. So it does look like this is going to be the main area to watch. It is popping up into the Earth-directed view. Also another region here across the northeastern limb. That's going to be that sunspot group that we've been looking at on the far side of the sun for a little while. The sunspot group right here was back out here the last time, and these were the old numbers. They'll get newly assigned numbers once it's into a more Earth-directed view. But that's cresting over here on the eastern limb right now. So yeah, hopefully maybe we'll see some solar flare activity stirring up. 40% chance there for M flare. These guys bumped up the X flare at about 10%. No major auroras in the forecast for now, but that could change with that active region there. Far as any close approach asteroids go here to the planet, double check that real quick. Always look at these numbers first here on the side, the closest Earth approach there, and they're all millions of miles away. The only thing is they're all newly discovered as well, so they're always finding new asteroids out there. But for us, fortunately for now, these are all millions of miles away. As far as any major severe weather events go out here, got a slight risk across Texas again. This is starting to look like May and April. April or May here. Got a little 2% chance for some tornado activity. A little bit of wind, and Texas knows how to get the large hail done. There's some large hail threats that threaten portions of southeastern Colorado as well. There is some talk about a hurricane there off the Atlantic. Going to watch this area back over here. See Yeah, see, it does look like there's some area of interest as far as tropical development goes as we get deeper into August, potentially leading up into hurricane status there, but we'll have to watch that. That's a ways out. It's going to be this area right here. Looks like it's going to skim the eastern coast, but we'll check back on that as we get a little bit later. This is going to be around the 10th or 11th time period, so we got a little bit of time there before things play out, if they play out that way. Hot across the west coast, got massive high pressure sitting in here. Just my worst fear is that high pressure sitting out there across the Pacific Northwest here, just cooking us in Northern California. I get it, it's summertime, right? But I don't like it, and I don't have to like it. I don't like the heat one bit. Anyway, folks, yeah, just be on guard, stay safe. A lot going on out there, and it can get a lot worse. But just got to be prepared. Make sure you have some type of earthquake plan. Even me living out here in Northern California, all of us out here have to have an earthquake plan. Fortunately, I'm off of the coast inland here into the Chico area, but when a big earthquake strikes out here along the Cascadia, we're definitely going to feel it. But just be prepared. Have a good one. We'll see you guys out here a little bit later on this evening for the Sunday night update. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.